What if we discovered that every color we wanted was in our eyes, every rhythm discovered in our ears, every sense of hope discovered in our grasp? What if we discovered our strength in our feet to walk again, every experience to make by our hand, every destiny discovered by our roadmap of resilience? What if we discovered we could be what we could become? What if we could discover the world we dream to aspire? So, let us discover. Discover Insurance is a member of the Discover Holdings Group, a licensed non-life insurer.
Good morning, everyone. It's Mwalwa here in Dubai, UAE at COP. This is day 8 of COP, and we've had an exciting week thus far. Today is Friday, and we will be sitting down with a number of heads of various organizations who have been participating in this week's COP. Thus far, we've had an opportunity of giving coverage to our 4 partners that include WWF, Stanbic Bank, FNB Bank, and Africa Green Corps. Earlier on, you heard about the numerous announcements that Africa Green Corps had made. They had 3 contracts that they signed, one with a Zambian power company, as well as 2 with Zimbabwean entities. What we're looking forward to this weekend is obviously covering the next set of events that are going to be happening with WWF, who are our strategic partners back in Zambia. Now, one of the things that we're also excited about is also conducting an interview with the Minister of Green Economy, Honorable Engineer Collins Nzovu, whom we had an opportunity of meeting with last night. He told us about how, although it was day 7, which was the rest day for COP, they were actually busy with the Council of Ministers meetings. So essentially for them, it was day 1 in terms of deliberations around issues affecting climate. He indicated to us that the global community is obviously very proud with the efforts that Zambia has made, and that is because Zambia was in the chairmanship and they've been stewarding a lot of things, and which is quite phenomenal because the Ministry of Green Economy was literally set up not too long ago. So it does give us a lot of confidence in terms of some of the frameworks that they've been trying to implement around climate change. Another issue that we'll be looking into is some of the events that will be happening this weekend that include climate issues around youth. We do have some youth representatives from WWF Zambia who have just arrived in the country, whom we'll be looking to interview. So we encourage all our followers to continue following the insights. We only have a few more days left in Dubai, and we certainly hope that you've enjoyed all the content that we've been giving you. From me, this is Mwelo Chivesakunda at COP28 in Dubai.
Thank you very much. And before I start, let me recognize the presence of ministers from Zimbabwe, Lovo, Kojo from Ghana, and my brother from Sierra Leone. Distinguished delegates, members of the press. First, we would like to thank the UAE government and the COP28 president in particular for the excellent arrangements for the conference and the leadership they demonstrated at this conference so far. We reaffirm our support for the process so that we arrive at a meaningful and ambitious outcome here at COP28. We wish to share our reflections on the status of negotiations and indicate our expectations of the outcome of this conference. As you know, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, COP28 has been dubbed as a crucial moment for global climate action as we take stock of the implementation of the Paris Agreement of 2015. For us, as the African group, we came here focused and determined to ensure that COP28 delivers a fair and balanced global stocktake that catalyzes greater ambition across all elements of climate action, that is, adaptation, loss and damage, mitigation, and means of implementation centered on equity, a just transition work program aimed at promoting sustainable development, and climate finance, where developed countries make meaningful financial commitments, both in quality and quantity, based on their obligations under the Climate Convention as well as the Paris Agreement. As such, we expect COP28 to result in tangible outcomes which reflect Africa's aspirations, especially on the need for enhanced climate adaptation. We wish to agree with the United Secretary General Antonio Guterres on the report, who said, and we quote, "Lives and livelihoods are being lost and destroyed, with the vulnerable suffering the most. We are in an adaptation emergency. We must act like it and take steps to close the adaptation gap now." On the transition pathways, the African group welcomes the establishment of this very important work program. However, advancing the implementation and strengthening of the global response to the threat of climate change should not be done in the context of equity and centered on sustainable development and poverty eradication. We should design a robust and comprehensive work program that includes elements, scope, and modalities which recognize the different pathways for achieving the goals of the Paris Agreement. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we look forward to engage constructively with all parties for a successful outcome of COP28. I thank you for your kind attention.
Allow me to start by saying it's been long coming. We are very, very proud and indeed honored to be doing this right here at COP28. This is a big milestone for Zambia, a big milestone for Zambians, and a big milestone for CEC. Today, we humbly requested our Honorable Minister to come and officially launch the successful registration of a 200 million green bond. This is a first for Zambia, and I think it's going to demonstrate what is possible when we partner as private sector with the government, when we partner with the people of Zambia, when we partner with the local communities, what is possible to achieve. And we started this journey, allow me to just give a very brief history, about 5 years ago. So 5 years ago, we commissioned a 1 megawatt solar project At the beginning of this year, in February, we commissioned a 34 megawatt solar PV project, and at the end of this year, we'll be commissioning a 60 megawatt solar project. So we are talking about a 200 million green bond, and the purpose of this is to be able to build out 200 megawatts of solar PV projects. From our perspective, this is a clear demonstration of how the private sector can drive and facilitate energy transition, and if you will, just energy transition. I believe CEC is clearly demonstrating that as private sector, we can play a critical role in catalyzing and playing that agency of change with respect to sustainability as well as social equity.
So I would like to inform you that the Zambian government has developed a green growth strategy, which is part of its aspiration to become a prosperous middle-income country by 2030. So the green growth strategy is Zambia's blueprint for greening the economy and the environment by deliberately pursuing a development trajectory that is resource efficient, that is low carbon, that's climate resilient, and that is socially inclusive, basically a green economy. I'm happy to announce that I'll be launching this green growth strategy in the coming few weeks. One of the key objectives in the green growth strategy is to attract green finance, which is a critical success factor for achieving Zambia's green growth aspirations. The Zambian government, working with its key stakeholders, is keen to position Zambia as a preferred investment hub for green projects and green jobs. My ministry, the Ministry of Green Economy and Environment, has since its establishment relentlessly worked towards creating an enabling environment for harnessing viable green projects. For instance, about 2 years ago, the ministry provided and has continued to provide technical support to the financial sector regulators who have been promoting an agenda to mainstream green finance in the financial services sector in Zambia. As we speak, the government of the Republic of Zambia has put in place 2 regulatory frameworks that are being leveraged to raise green investments, and these include the Green Bonds Framework issued by the Securities and Exchange Commission in 2019 and the Green Loans Framework issued by the Bank of Zambia this year, 2023. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is important to highlight the foregoing achievements because the monumental occasion that we are witnessing this morning is a result of government's commitment towards a green transition. The Zambian government, with its public and private sector partners, have been collaborating in various areas to ensure that Zambia makes considerable progress in the greening and sustainability agenda.
We have definitely taken the transition to a different level. We believe that as one of the key players in the sector, we should definitely pioneer some of the initiatives. So What we've done, if you look at the transition itself, we've looked at some of the generation plants that we have that produce a lot more carbon to try and see how we can significantly reduce the carbon emissions in that. So when you look at the GTAs, what we call gas turbine alternators, these are diesel run machines, and we are converting them to initially change the fuel source and introduce a combined cycle by introducing gas supply. That in itself will significantly reduce the carbon emissions. But added to that, I guess we've just launched the financing for some of the solar plants that we are generating, and we have an ambition to hit 250 megawatts of solar plants generation, coupled with some form of storage. And separately, we also have ambition. We've been doing some feasibility studies on a wind project in Masaiti area, which is a 138 megawatts plant. So when you look at it from that perspective, we believe that in the short term, these projects will significantly contribute to the transition agenda for the country. And if you look at the overall generation capacity from a country perspective, over the next 4 or 5 years, we think that these projects that we are looking at will play a key role in the transition agenda for the country.
I think it's nice to speak after the CEC announcement today because it sort of brings it to life, what we talk about on these panels, through WhatsApp, the telephone conversations, or the other platforms that we normally get to participate in. So from a regulatory point of view, our role really is market supervision, which is what regulators are well known for. But the Commission sits with another mandate, which is market development. So the CEC bond issuance sits in a market development initiative for developing new and innovative products, and the green bonds is one of them. And it's really a fruition of us, first of all, ensuring that we have an enabling environment. So we issued the green bonds guidelines in 2019, and it's good that a few years later we are actually having a green bond issuance. And for me, I'm really hoping that we're going to have more. Firstly, we need data. We don't know where these opportunities are seated in Zambia. We just see a lot of SMEs moving from funder to funder, from bank to bank, from institution to institution looking for funding. But we also have banks doing the same. I think it was yesterday, Zanaco were sharing that they've got X million of funds, but they don't know where these projects are seated within the country. So one of the things that we're trying to do is make sure that we synchronize this data. It sits in one place where all of us can identify these opportunities, and we move on and implement, and we begin to achieve some of these transition agendas that we have. We begin to achieve some of the sustainable outcomes that we've been talking about throughout the SEC. Thank you.
Now, from a CEC perspective, one of the big issues that we've always had with our financiers is to say, how can we allow for financiers to look at the risk allocation very differently? Because we believe that risk allocation can be underpinned on a private to private sector without the involvement of government and government support. So how can they get comfortable and essentially look at an alternative supply in the event of default of, number one, the fact that the industry is highly liberalized, so you have an option to go to another off-taker. Secondly, there is the market, which is a sub-market, which provides that alternative platform to sell power to. And we're happy, I'm quite pleased that the financiers that came on board, essentially we came to terms with the risk allocation, which moves away from the traditional risk allocation that we've seen. And we think that with this milestone achievement, we are going to see more and more private to private type structuring of deals of this nature, which will now not require government to come in. Now, I'm talking about the energy sector, but really you can pick the principles and apply them anywhere else, whether it's rail, it's roads, or anything of that sort. So we don't need the governments themselves to get involved and do a lot more in terms of providing the necessary support.
What if we discovered that every color we wanted was in our eyes, every rhythm discovered in our ears, every sense of hope discovered in our grasp? What if we discovered our strength in our feet to walk again, every experience to make by our hand, every destiny discovered by our roadmap of resilience? What if we discovered we could be what we could become? What if we could discover the world we dream to aspire? So, let us discover. Discover Insurance is a member of the Discover Holdings Group, a licensed non-life insurer.
About to have a very interesting conversation with Nachi Msonda, who hails from the insurance industry. Nachi, how are you doing?
I'm good, Moelo. How are you?
I'm well. How are you finding Dubai?
It's good. The weather is a bit hot, but it's good.
Yeah, it's been awfully humid, but then, all the more reason that, we're actually here for this significant, important event. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and the company that you represent.
Yeah, so my name is Nachi Msonda. I'm the Deputy Chief Executive for Discover Insurance back home in Zambia. We saw it fit to come and visit COP28 and just have a few insights and learn from other players around the world.
Absolutely, Nachi. And, obviously, the climate agenda is something that's very, very significant. And I'd like to imagine that you as an insurance company are obviously positioning yourself. Tell us a little bit about some of the insights that you've learned coming to this particular COP. And by the way, is this your first COP?
No.
Okay.
My first was, I think, COP15.
Okay.
I was a bit young, different agenda, but
Yes.
from an insurance point of view, this is my first COP.
Absolutely. And how have the insights been for you so far?
So far, so good. I mean, the loss and damage fund was a big one for me as an insurer. You know that from the Zambian point of view, we have the FiZ, the
Yes.
Farmer Input Support Program.
Correct.
That has a bit of component of insurance based on climate change. So what happens there is that you have some weather indexing. But
Correct.
really what we are talking about is, does this platform provide for insurance or losses and damages to be paid to the vulnerable people? Your mother, my mother, or my
Correct.
grandmother in the village,
Correct.
probably it's not reaching the intended recipients. So the loss and damage fund, for me, if Zambia can tap into that,
Yes.
expands the coverage, we might be able to access funds that can really work to uplift or to improve that program.
Absolutely. And obviously with loss and damage, I think COP28 has actually shown us that, many countries are putting money where their mouths are, and they're actually making humongous pledges that we've been hearing. And this is only day 5, and the pledges still keep on coming in. But from an insurance perspective, what do these pledges mean for you as an insurance company? And how do you see yourselves tapping into in order to ensure that, like what you said about, our people back home being able to be covered?
Yeah, as an insurance company, obviously, so many innovations are around here. We do in Zambia what is called weather indexing, but you see that our friends have gone. There are other parametric insurance solutions that have been showcased here. But really, from an insurance point of view, we need to tap in. We need to be innovative. I mean, insurers in Zambia have now a fund. Hopefully, all these pledges come to fruition so that different players can tap into and, bring out the innovation back home.
Absolutely. Anyway, so, naturally, it's been fantastic chatting with you, and we look forward to engaging with you more around COP28.
Thank you, Moilo.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving Discover an opportunity to
Absolutely,
chat.
and thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and continue to view us on all our platforms and get to know. With me is none other than RAMSA's Secretary General, Dr. Mumba, who is going to sit down with me, or rather stand with me, for us to have a conversation about what's going on at COP. Dr. Mumba, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure to actually have you. And I know this is your first interview, so obviously for our viewers, they'll obviously like to know a little bit about yourself. Where you're coming from. What is RAMSA, especially for our Zambian viewers, because obviously internationally, it's a very highly recognized organization that deals with wetlands. And we do know that, you're a lover of wetlands. And
correct.
Yes. So please tell us a little bit about your organization.
No, thank you so much. I'm the Secretary General of the Convention on Wetlands, which is the oldest and most experienced multilateral environmental agreement. And that means it brings 172 countries together, governments, of which Zambia is one of them. Zambia is a contracting party, as we refer to them. And as Zambia, to become a contracting party to the convention, they have to designate a wetland system, one or many. In fact, they have many in Zambia. And one of them, which is one of the world famous wetland systems, is the Zambezi floodplains.
Right.
And one ceremony that we know in Zambia, which is amazing and stunning, connected to culture and wetlands, is the Kuomboka.
Absolutely.
That is a floodplain system where the king, the Litunga, migrates from the lowland to the highland, and he's migrating through a wetland. So for us, it's about wetland systems, these Ramsar sites that are used by people, local people, and also bringing resources to the economy.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's fantastic that you've given us context in terms of what RAMSA is all about. But we're here in Dubai at COP28. What is your role at COP28, and what are you hoping to, as the organization, hoping to achieve in participating in this event?
I'm so glad you asked that question, because I gave the example of the Kuomboka. Now, the Kuomboka, there are some years that it has not taken place.
Correct.
And the reason it hasn't taken place is because there's not enough water in the Zambezi, and this is due to drought. What we're beginning to see is the manifestation of climate change in wetland systems. Too much or too little water. And these changes, these shifts in these ecosystems is why I'm here. I'm talking to member states, to countries. I'm talking with different stakeholders, constituencies, private sector. I was meeting with Danone yesterday because Danone is one of the RAMSA partners, and they've been a partner to the convention for 25 years. And so, how do we bridge the issue of climate change and wetland systems? Mangrove ecosystems are important ecosystems for carbon sequestration, floodplain systems, the soils of wetland peatland ecosystems are so important. So I'm here to really talk about why these spaces matter. We've been hearing a lot, loss and damage, loss and damage.
Yes,
What is that loss?
Big announcement and lots of pledges.
Exactly.
Does that excite you?
It excites me.
Yeah.
But what does loss and damage mean? What is the loss that is incurred when you have a dangerous flood?
Right.
Tsunamis, for example, king tides that just come on, flooding in the city. We saw how flooding was happening around Lusaka. People were shocked, right?
Yes.
When that, when Hurricane Idai hit Mozambique, that rain front moved inland, Malawi, Zambia, Zimbabwe. And so the manifestation is flooding in systems. University of Zambia is a marsh area. Kalingalinga, that place in Lusaka, these are all marsh areas. And we've seen how disasters have manifested just due to flooding, loss of life, loss of infrastructure. Who pays for that? Because Africa as a continent only contributes 3% of these greenhouse gases. So these are the conversations that are happening here. And so for us as a convention is to talk about these realities. And what's exciting me is that for the first time, this is the most attended COP in history.
Really? Wow.
Apparently they have 110,000 people here. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Please be involved with us. And by the way, 2nd of February next year is World Wetlands Day.
Oh,
and
right.
the theme is wetlands and human well-being.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. And we'll definitely be following that. Dr. Mumba, thank you so much
You're
for
very welcome.
speaking to us. And for all our followers, please follow all the insights that are coming out of COP28 here in UAE, Dubai. This has been Mwaloch Vesakunda speaking to Dr. Mumba, who is the Secretary General of RAMSA.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
All right.
Right now, I'm joined by Susi Kunasinda, who is a climate finance and renewable energy expert. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. Cedric, how are you? And thanks for hosting me today on FI Zambia.
Glad to have you. So how has been your COP experience so far?
Well, this is a fantastic COP. There's so much expectations coming out of this particular COP because the reality of the climate crisis is upon us. I've spent a lot of time in the multilateral pavilions, specifically the World Bank, to try and understand how blended finance can be used to scale up private sector investment in Zambia. You agree with me that Zambia is currently driving a private sector-led development agenda. We have seen the president, who's the chief marketing officer of the country, going around preaching private sector development. He added some action to that by creating the Public-Private Dialogue Forum, a forum which is basically looking at dealing with the critical issues that are impeding private sector development in the country. Specifically in the energy sector, we have seen the announcement at this COP of the rolling out of a massive mini-grid program, 1,400 mini-grids in collaboration with the Rockefeller Foundation. So basically, my focus has been on how do we leverage financing the goodwill of the World Bank, the goodwill of the IMF, goodwill of institutions like the African Development Bank, to be able to create the regulatory as well as policy framework that is conducive, that will create a conducive environment for private players to be able to come on board in Zambia.
Tell us a little bit about some of the engagements that you've had, and if at all there's been any panel discussions that you've been on that have been addressing the issues that you've just raised.
Yeah, I will place on the panel discussion for mitigation, adaptation and resilience, and finance. And I see that as one of the most important panel I can serve on, because the issue at hand now is about mitigation. And if we don't mitigate fairly, how do we expect our people to adapt to the damage of climate change? In order to create the resilience, the concept of resilience, we have to mitigate significantly so our people are capable to deal with the situation that we are facing now in the global community. And this is significant. This COP28 actually brought out a whole lot of people. I understand it has populated about pretty close to about 100,000 participants.
Yes.
And this must be maybe one of the most or the largest participant that ever happened since the COP series was developed in 1995.
What are you hoping to take away with you once you leave COP?
Like I said, one has to remain optimistic because whether we like it or not, we are at the mercy of the powerful.
Absolutely.
And so we want to be optimistic. We want to listen to the last few days that are left, 5 days more, or 4 days if I'm correct, to listen to the leadership and to hear what they're going to tell us. Because making all these pledges, which was very good, I mean, this could be classified as maybe one of the most successful COP or series. But what would be the deliverable? And who is responsible to hold responsible for those who are responsible for the impact?
Correct.
And this is the question we've always had. Because the framework that had been created under the legal ramification, it has no enforceable mechanism. So if one make a pledge, it's like voluntary. So they can come back in the next conference and say, I had some difficult time with economics and what have you, so I couldn't deliver all my commitment. No one's going to hold them responsible. Whether it is true or not, no one holds them responsible. So the question here is, why is the need of this binding resolution that have been in place when they do not have enforceable mechanism? And that question goes back to UNFCCC and the COP series, the leadership. The factor, there's somebody here who is getting the impact, and that's Africa.
Correct.
What are you doing to correct the issue? It's going to pretty close to about what, 20-something years now since COP been in existence. Yes. Is Africa not supposed to ask why are we not getting the benefit that we need? And so while the issue of optimism is there, but we have to be cautiously optimistic. Correct. To make sure that we hold accountable those who are responsible.
With me is Daniel Melling, who's going to tell me a little bit about what his organization does on carbon credits. Daniel, how are you doing?
Great, thank you.
Just so that our viewers get to know what organization you represent, tell us a little bit about who Daniel is and what the organization that you represent.
My name is Daniel Melling. I work for CTrees. We're a nonprofit based in California, and we come from the science community. Our CEO is a scientist at NASA Jet Propulsion Lab, and we're part of a global collaboration of scientists in Brazil, Denmark, France, Africa, all around the world, who are coming together to bring the best science to measure carbon in forests and trees everywhere. So our data gives any country in the world access to a carbon stock inventory, emissions, removals, and you can also see the 20-year trend.
But fast forward to after COP. So far, I'm sure you've had some very interesting conversations. What do you think are some of your key takeaways of this year's event? I know we're just a couple of days before it actually ends. What are some of your key takeaways from this year's event?
I think, like with all solutions, you need, whether it's energy or buildings, cars and technology, you need action at all levels. So while the UN is kind of one layer and we're having this global conversation, we also need countries, states, and local places to take action and participate in solutions. And there may be efforts that need to come more from government and more from the private sector. Underneath all of that is really a need for transparent and clear data. And we're hoping that CTrees, with the free data tools that we're offering and some of these more advanced partnerships, are really bringing every group access to that data. And so we're looking to really support those places, such as in Africa, in Latin America, in Indonesia and Southeast Asia, that have the highest value forests and really need that extra support.
Obviously, WWF's participation is highly noticeable, especially at events such as this one. But obviously, because you've got like an African sort of, reach in terms of your jurisdiction, why was it important for you to be part of this year's COP?
Okay, thanks for that. Being part of this COP, and not just this COP, because we've been part of the climate change process from 1992, when you had the three Rio Conventions, as they call them, that were born out of the 1992 Rio Convention, or the Rio Conference on Environment and Development in Brazil. So WWF has been keen in following up on issues, not just on climate change, but on biodiversity, on environment. And so coming here was just another opportunity or another platform we want to use to ensure that issues around conservation are not considered in isolation. They should be considered within the holistic parameter of climate change, biodiversity, and development. And from an African perspective, where we are operating, like I said earlier, for the last 6 decades, with offices spread across from Cape to Cairo, we look at events like this or processes like this as a way to ensure that Africa's voice is heard. Africa's voice is heard not just from our narrow perspective of being the victim of climate change, but also as a continent that has the solutions to climate change. Knowing very well that Africa emits just less than 4% of global greenhouse emissions, but Africa is one of those continents that has been vulnerable to the effects of climate change. And we've seen with the floods, with with the changing weather pattern, which affects agriculture and thereby affecting food security, it becomes critical for Africa to be in this, to be part of this, and for WWF in Africa to be part of this, because we try to see how to use such platforms or such events like this to bridge the issues of development and environmental protection. Knowing very well that conservation in Africa, take for instance countries like Kenya, where tourism contributes a large part of their GDP, it becomes crucial that conservation contributes to Africa's development, right? And so for us, that's one of the things we're trying to get out of here. But more importantly also, being an organization that operates in Africa, we have forged strong partnerships with some of the key stakeholders, especially the government, but also some of the regional Pan-African institutions like the African Development Bank, the African Union Commission, and the Regional Economic Community, SADC, ECAS. So these are some of the places we want to showcase that partnership, that WWF is not just a conservation organization, but it's also an organization that looks at how to marry development and conservation.
Greetings everyone, my name is Cedric Chuma for Financial Insight Zambia here in Dubai, the UAE, which is the venue for this year's COP28 conference. Financial Insight Zambia was privileged to be at the conference, giving coverage to several private sector clients of ours who are here. We also got to see several landmark announcements. Locally, we had the announcement of 100 initial mini grids, which was announced by the president in conjunction, the president of Zambia, in conjunction with the president of the Rockefeller Foundation. We also saw significant deals. Firstly, the very first green bond ever issued in Zambia, $200 million by CEC. We also saw a significant deal with regards to PPAs between Green Coal and Ilute Solar, as well as Serengeti Energy. That was some of the key highlights that happened with regards to our local news. And for the COP28 conference, this was a very special conference in that it's the very first conference with a global stocktake. What this simply means is there was a pooling of data to look at where we are in terms of the climate crisis and what gaps need to be addressed. It shows that we are in an unprecedented climate crisis, but we have a lot more work to do. The climate crisis affects every one of us, regardless of where you are, who you are, or any kind, and we only have one planet. I think that was something that really stood out from the global stocktake, and that more needs to be done. The other big news was, of course, the loss and damage fund, with pledged funds to actually help the damage and loss caused by climate change, and that's been a very significant step. More needs to be done with regards to that one as well. So it has been a very, very fruitful COP, and we were also privileged to cover Stanbic Bank Zambia, to cover FNB Bank Zambia, to cover WWF and Africa Green Co at this year's COP28 conference. Financial Insight Zambia continues to deliver, continues to provide relevant news up to date on the COP28 conference, as well as on our clients' activities at the COP28 conference. Financial Insight Zambia also takes this particular opportunity to thank our amazing sponsors, namely Africa Green Co, the WWF Zambia, FNB, as well as Stanbic, who are our core clients, and we are very excited for the continued growth of all our clients, and we'd like to thank them for this opportunity to offer Financial Insight Zambia services. We also would like to thank every other party that has helped get us this far and helped us execute a very, very fruitful COP28 conference coverage. Keep everything glued to Financial Insight Zambia media platforms and our website. Thank you so much for watching, and get to know.
What if we discovered that every color we wanted was in our eyes, every rhythm discovered in our ears, every sense of hope discovered in our grasp? What if we discovered our strength in our feet to walk again, every experience to make by our hand, every destiny discovered by our roadmap of resilience? What if we discovered we could be what we could become? What if we could discover the world we dream to aspire? So, let us discover. Discover Insurance is a member of the Discover Holdings Group, a licensed non-life insurer.